it's a long title. So yesterday I was asked again, can we shorten it a bit? The problem is these are focused on Spring Boot. I love Spring Boot. It works on, we'll see, hopefully it works on Windows, Docker containers, and it is done with Ansible for many reasons. So before I start, everything is really 100% comprehensible. So you all bring your laptops, right? So just click on this link and then you'll be fine. So let's do that now. Because when I started with this topic, the problem was there were many talks about it, but I don't know what they did. I think my theory is they went to USA to the Ignite conference at Microsoft, and then they had a real good day, and then after that, after some beer, they went down and said, okay, I'm writing a blog post now, and then they just say, okay, you have to do this, that, and then everything's running. And for me, my experience was nothing was running. I mean, I read so many blog posts, and the problem was something was missing all the time. So, okay, that's the promise. Everything should be comprehensible. Nice animation. So I originally started as a Java Enterprise guy. Who knows this Java Enterprise stuff? EJB and these application servers and mainframe connectivity. Ooh. Okay. So, and then I said, okay, you always have the problems. You have this cloud of technologies and methodologies, and you have the real world on the other side. And me as a consultant, I'm there in between and have to say, okay, what works for this problem? What should we take here? And yeah. So I was in a project where the customer said, please build us a Windows-backed Spring Boot app. Oh my God. I mean, they didn't really said that, but it was the thing they needed. I'm not a Windows guy, so I was just screaming hell. Yeah, but there are some, I would say, things I could really advise to do, and these four are, it boils down to these four. The first is make no compromises, automate it. Just take the time to automate this stuff, because you will need the time for other things in your project. You will need it, and especially if you're working with this Windows stuff, then you always need to have the situation that you can just delete everything and start new. And it's just possible with automation. You should do it 100% comprehensible, because every customer situation has its specialties, and it's really always good to have something where you can say, okay, this is working on a complete open source based basis, and then now let's have a look what's the special thing here at the customer. So especially in this case with Windows, it's really a thing I experienced you should use. The same is for open source. I mean, the biggest software and best software on this planet is using open source or is open source. So it shouldn't be a question today to do the technical stuff there and build it from the ground up. I talked about this blog post from the Microsoft Ignite guys. Just try to do it yourself. Yeah, right. Just Google what is this technology. Don't read too much marketing presentations. It's better just to take the hour and get your hands on the stuff. So let's get our hands on this stuff here. So if you want to do that, we just think we need some things. First is we need a Windows box. Who knows Vagrant? Yeah, so for all the Linux stuff, we really knew Vagrant well. and I want to have such a box for Windows too, right? And then we have already an continuous integration or continuous delivery tool like Ansible in place, and we want to provision all the Windows servers the same as the Linux ones. We don't want to make any compromise, you're reminded. And after that, we have to prepare Docker on Windows because they said we should scale this, okay, it's not a bad idea. And then we can finally run our Spring Boot apps there. And if we are running them, we can hopefully scale them later. So, okay, let's do the Windows box. When I started with the topic, I was really impressed that Microsoft changed, I think, the way they are working, because they are really providing a Vagrant Box for themselves. So you can just download it and start. But problem is this 4th build number. And you will come really far, but the Docker run will not work. So problem here is, as I wanted to have a completely comprehensible setup, and that should be based on a Microsoft Windows box, not from just a private guy, I had to say, okay, how can I get a Windows box? Yeah, there's this evaluation link. So you can download a Windows Server ISO file, and if you have this ISO, it's quite nice that you all said, Vagrant, so the company behind it is HashiCorp, and they have this Vagrant Cloud, right, where they have all these boxes stored and you can search. So they also have the same problem like me. They have to provide these Vagrant boxes. How do they provide them? Does somebody know how they are doing this? They're just using Packer. They wrote a tool for that, and you can use Packer to create whatever Vagrant box you want. I did the Packer build yesterday because it's just running for half an hour, and all this half an hour I have to just stay with the slides, and it's just a bit boring. And somebody told me, okay, we will trust you that this is 100% comprehensible. So if you run it, it should be getting you some Vagrant Box, and this should be look like that. Right, here's some 5 GB box from yesterday, 11th of January, and if you run this, it should look like that. So it's really, you don't have to click anything. You know this computers at your grandmother, when she calls you and she says, oh, this and that is not working? I love this setup because when my grandmother calls me, I just run Ansible or Packer here. So, I mean, no problem there. So, and if you just did the Packer build, you can say Vagrant up. You know this step already, so many hands up, and then you're just starting your Windows box. And Vagrant, the Vagrant commands should be just the only thing you have to use, right? Just Vagrant up, Vagrant halt, all this stuff. No, just not logging in and stuff like that. Okay, so right. So now we have this box, and now we can go to Ansible. Who's using Ansible? Oh, quite many people. That's cool. So it's something from these DevOps tools. I think the first one was CF Engine. But what is Ansible? It's just using SSH to communicate to Linux boxes. And that's all. It's agentless, it's really simple, and it will provision your stuff, and it will also do this for all your Linux boxes or Unix boxes. And as I said, there are some Mr. Pain guys. It's also working for Windows. It was quite impressive for me. So they're not using SSH, but WinRAM. And yeah, it's working. And there are some blog posts about it. So as Ansible is really simple, and so many people said, yeah, I know Ansible. Let's look into a small playbook example. It's like that. You have a playbook, you have a host file, some group bars, and it's really looking simple. This playbook just installs Firefox. And as you know, this ugly Internet Explorer, I mean, I'm doing Windows here, but no Internet Explorer. So I think we should install Firefox here. So, and the first thing you should always do. Yeah, ask.
Possible Linux to Windows or just only Windows to Windows with Ansible? If I want to install some stuff on Windows.
What do you mean, the control machine for Ansible, or? The control machine is always Linux. So we're talking here about the provisioned machines. But if you have Windows 10, it works also with the Linux subsystem there. I had a customer where we had the need to use Windows as the control machine. And as they gave a Windows 10 machine, it was okay to use the Ubuntu subsystem. Right, okay, so let's just see if the machine is pingable, because it's always the first thing you need to check if this thing is there, and it gives a success. And it's really cool because the Packer build is just preparing us not only a Vagrant Box, it prepares Ansible ready Vagrant Box, because WinRAM is open, all the ports are open and stuff like that, and that's really cool. So we can just install Firefox, hopefully. I hope I can download something in the guest VLAN. I just have the guest VLAN, don't know. Ah, nice. There's Firefox. Okay, so good browser now. And we can go to whatever. Right, cool. Ah, nice, okay. I'm back on track. So now we are able now to provision our Windows boxes with Ansible. We can go a step further and just install or prepare Docker on Windows. So the question is, who's doing Docker? There's a t-shirt, so you have to do Docker, right? There are many arms up. And who's doing it in production? Okay. Many arms open. So this is just one slide about Docker. Difference between virtual machine and Docker. I think it's quite well known. You don't have a hypervisor, and you have this Docker file where you can say, okay, these are the dependencies of my app, and you're just safe, and not like this EJB stuff, ancient things where you just didn't know which Java version and things like that. It's pretty cool, and you can really run lots of containers there. So I always remind the coffee kitchen here, and if I told the colleagues, yeah, there's Docker on Windows, they're just like, okay, Docker on Windows. But is there this? Yeah, there's the Docker Hub, and you can go right there and just browse the images there. So they are from Microsoft, and you also see the time when they joined into the Docker game. And yeah, and you have PowerShell to go into the containers. And they're like, okay, PowerShell, heard of it, but yeah, but for me, what was really cool, I thought it's Microsoft, and I mean, Microsoft, for me, it's like IBM or something. They say, okay, Docker, let's build our own Docker. No, they just said, okay, Docker Inc., the company behind Docker, let's just do a partnership and develop Docker for Windows on GitHub. Not a fork or something else, it's the Docker. So really cool. And then it's possible to do that. So you have a Windows machine and you can run Windows apps inside the Docker containers. And you can also do that. And that's pretty cool because it's something that only Windows now is able to do. So to run it both. And it's always a good advice to run Linux apps in Linux. So don't download or use the Nginx image I showed you on the Docker Hub. It's not a good idea. Right, and yeah, there are some differences. I'm just going a bit speed here today, but they have two types of containers. I think don't use the Hyper-V stuff, just use the Windows Server containers. Why? Because Docker for me has no hypervisor, and Windows said, okay, or Microsoft said, okay, let's do two types, and one thing has Hyper-V, which is a hypervisor. I mean, it's smaller, but it's a hypervisor. Just use the Windows Server and Windows Server containers, and you're fine. And the second thing is, I really love the presentation. Just have a look on YouTube, watching the John Starks is the leading architect for Docker on Windows, and it's really cool talk because on DockerCon he says like, okay, we're Windows, let's do Docker, and we went to Docker and said, okay, let's rebuild Docker, and then after 2 months they said, okay, let's rebuild Windows. It's really cool to see, and it shows some mind change in the company, which I think is going on there. Yeah, and they have these two base images. There's the Windows Server core with 10 gigabytes. So, you know, core. And there's the Nano server. Just use this thing because it has 600 megabytes. It's really pretty much smaller. The only promise of this core thing is that if you have a real hardcore legacy app, we had that in the project, then it should run on this core thing because there's everything in it. And I mean, you have the Docker thing with the layers, you know, so it's just downloaded once, it's okay, and they're really pushing this further. I think the current development branch of Nano server is just 50 megabytes. So it's just really comparable with some smaller Linux images. But for me, it's not working because you have no PowerShell and nothing like that. So, but I think they are pushing it right. Okay, so let's have a look. We should provide our Vagrant Box with Docker. We have some steps to do, but I'll just show you in the demo. Okay, so let's prepare this. I think there's a video on our website, right? Nice. Okay, so you can have a look just here. We prepare it. So what is this doing? Let's have a look into the code. Right, like that. It's also an advice I can give to you, the Ansible playbooks. The main playbooks you use should always be something like readable for all the project members. Because you can go into detail at the other in the included playbooks, but at this stage here you can just say, okay, I know this check the minimum build number. You remind the build number thing. You always check this at first. Then install some Windows features. You need the container and the Hyper-V feature, Windows feature. Then install Docker. Then compose, and then run a test container. So then Docker should be installed. If the test container is running, and everything should be fine. And after that, we can build the base image for Spring Boot. You remember we are on Windows, so there is no nano server Spring Boot image or Maven 3. You know this from Linux. All this getting started guides with Spring Boot and Docker. It's just easy there. No, we have to build our own base image here. So this is done here. And then there's just some debug output. So let's have a look. The script looks good. So let's start here. Okay. It's checking the minimum build number. So if that's a minimum of this, then we can go further. Just installs the Hyper-V features and then installs Docker. We're using Chocolate here. Somebody knows this? Some arms. It's the package. It's one of the really great package managers for Windows. So like Homebrew for Mac or all the other apt-get or whatever you use on Linux. It's pretty nice. And but the problem with the package is something that really is hard on Windows, because at first I thought we only have to do this here, right? Just the same with Firefox, WinChocolate, name the package, say latest, and that's all. No, the problem with Windows is if you have a service running an executable file and it's still running, then you can't just remove it. You have to just first stop the service, deregister it, then install the new Docker version, then register the service again, and then start the service. So a few more steps to take, but it's no problem with Ansible. And then we should see the test container output here. So, right, it's this. You see this guy? It's a small, angry-looking .NET bot guy. So if this container is running, everything should be fine. So right, and then it's just installing a base image for our Spring Boot apps. And that's really cool because I think after me, second talk after me is Fabian from Instana, and they have this one link in their documentation that says how you can download the Java runtime with just one wget call in their documentation. And because you have the problem is downloading Java, you know, it's all this clicking and things like that, but you can do it with wget. But then you have to install wget before on Windows, you know, you're on Windows. Okay, well, it's no problem, it's working fine. And then we should have Docker on this machine. Okay, let's have a look. Just restart it. So let's take the PowerShell. Okay. Right, should be there. Right, okay, so we can just do a Docker run. And let's see if it was a fake, what this guy here is talking. So just name it bot. And I have Firefox, right? I can go online and so let's see if this runs. Oh, nice. So read container running. Docker should be fine. Okay, cool. So we now have this setup for our talk. We just did the Packer build to have the Vagrant Box with Windows, and now we have Ansible to provision our apps there, and to provision Docker and apps. We have to provision the apps. That's the good point. So we have to run our Spring Boot apps right on. that. So how is it done? Who knows Spring Boot? Yeah, I mean, most of you. It's one of the big projects of the Spring universe. And yeah, I'm not telling you something new. So, but what my wife is really loving is that Spring Boot is really loving Docker and each other. So around, they really match because that's with my roots as the Java EE guy. You know, if you just run a Java -jar, you just fire up your complete container and everything. You just don't have to mess with deployment descriptors and stuff like that, ancient stuff. So, okay, I think I don't have to show you how this works. So let's just look into a example Docker file for Windows. We built our Spring Boot base image, and we can use it. So we're just exposing a port. We're adding a Spring Boot file to our container. We're just naming it app-jar, and then we can have just the command, you know, yeah, Java -jar app, and just give some parameters like here. That's everything. Just the exe thing here is a bit different to Linux. Yeah, and then you can do a Docker build. So just look at the reference. We want to see it, right? Okay, just bring this here. All these nice animations. So I hope I had built it before. So let's just bring it on the Linux Windows, on the Windows box. All right. So, and we can have a look at this in parallel, I hope. So, gather your facts. So it should now template the Docker file, copy the Spring Boot app jar to the machine. Just created a directory before. Then it's trying to stop the old service. There's no service, so it's just failing, but we're just ignoring it. It's no problem. And then we're just building the image. Running the container. So I hope our app should be there. Ah, there it is. Pretty cool. So let's have a look if we can just come inside the Docker container. So I would really love to have a MacBook with more than 16 gigabytes. So we can have a look now inside the box. If we find something we know, let's see the environment variables. And here's our Java home. We said that before in the base image. So that's the explanation that the Java exe call should work. And now let's have a look if the app we just installed works inside the container. Always check the thing inside first. Always. Yeah, it should be works. HTTP, okay. All right, that looks good. So let's go outside the container. And then Microsoft is still Microsoft, right? So you know this localhost loopback thing from the normal Docker implementation, where you can just, if you have published a port of your Docker container app to the host, you can just do localhost and do the port, and then you're there. Microsoft just left that. So you have to know the internal IP of the container. So we have to just inspect the network. And here's our container. Just use it. We have Firefox here. I don't use this Internet Explorer. Too hard for me. So let's lose the, okay. Let's use it. A port was, I think, this here. It's just a simple app using, just a simple REST API app using Swagger UI, SpringFox. Just have a look if it will work. So, Solingen. We're here in Solingen today, so. Hello Solingen. Yeah, nice. Response code 200 works. Pretty cool. Are you there again? Nice. Okay. So we're nearly there. The only thing that's left is to scale up Spring Boot apps, right? So I mean, you know this original thing here, build and scale them. So no problem. Scale Spring Boot apps. I don't have much clue about it, so let's just Google it, how to do it. I think it's the easiest way. So it's just scale Spring Boot. Okay, there's some Quora, Stack Overflow. That looks good. Wait. Okay, I think we have to do it with, he says Spring Cloud Netflix and Docker Compose. It's a good idea. So, who knows Spring Cloud? Yeah, many people. Also a big project from, I think we will hear something more today about Spring Cloud, I'm sure. You know, I was this enterprise Java guy, so I need to just adapt to my world, this Spring Cloud things. So I just started to build a simple example app and just only using the Spring Cloud technologies I need for just a simple service call, right? So these are just, I don't know, you have to count it. I just use an edge service. You know, you're always doing this edge service thing for accessing your microservices. And then you have just the weather service that is calling a weather backend. And then you have all these nice Spring Cloud technique tools like it's Zool here. I think we will just get to hear the new Spring Cloud Gateway today from Josh. I'm really looking forward to this. And then we are just using Hystrix. I think Benjamin's here. He organized it there, and he could tell you about Hystrix a bit more than me. And we are using Eureka as a central service registry, where every service is registering itself. And for calling each other, we are using Ribbon and Feign, you know, some technologies. And then we have the basis. So we need something to start, how to scale. Okay, let's start with Docker Compose. Seems to be quite easy. Ships with Docker already, so for the playing around, and I think also for going to production, it could be a good choice together with Ansible. And then later on, you can just move to bigger solutions, like Docker Swarm or Kubernetes. What Docker Compose introduces is the concept of services over the containers. So these are defined in the Docker Compose file. And you can have, it's just the thing you need to say, okay, let's scale my service like weather backend here. And then Docker Compose will spin up more than one container, right? So it's pretty easy. And yeah, I needed the slide for my wife, you know. Docker Compose loves Spring Cloud, so you know. And let's just bring our all the example apps onto our Vagrant Box, right? So let's just scale them a bit more. Should be step 3, yeah. Ansible 2.4. So gather the effects. Now we have some more apps. You see them there. And now you see they are processed. First is the Zool Edge service. And it's just the same steps as before, just for 5 apps. Right. And then if we are there, we can run the Docker Compose. I think most of you will know Docker Compose up. You can use a nice feature with the project name. Then you can just tweak where your Docker Compose file lies. So because Docker Compose always names this services after the folder, except you define it with the project name. All right, so remove your stuff, rebuild. So let's see what he's doing. So we have all these services here, Zool, Eureka, weather backend, weather servers, and they are using a registry or not. Then run our Docker containers, and then we're just doing a health check on every app. You know this Spring Boot metrics and actuator endpoints, so you can just go to the health endpoint and just check if the app is up and running. And it's always a good thing to do the health checks at the end of your script. So as I said, we prepared all of them. Now we've run them, and then we do the health checks. Because the Ansible scripts are mostly built into your CI pipeline. And if the Jenkins or whatever says, okay, the job is done, it should be good if you know if the job is really done. And not if the apps are there but are not running. I mean, it's nothing you need. And we always need to get the internal IP address of the containers, you know, it's Windows. So, okay, let's have a look here. If there are some, oh, life is life. Okay, they're coming. So, we have our apps. They're all named with this Spring Boot thing, and then you have the name you saw before, and they should be up about a minute now. So let's just have a look on what IP our Eureka service registry has. So, woohoo! Yeah. Should be run. Okay, the registry has this here, so let's have a look to a registry. There it is. So then there are services registered to Eureka, and I think the health checks for Ansible should now be fine. And let's see what we should check now. Yeah, right. The Zool gets the roots from Eureka, which is quite not that well documented feature, I think. So all the apps did register to Eureka, and then Zool just takes the roots and generates them dynamically. So we should be able to just check out the roots inside our browser. That looks good. So they are all there. Right. It looks good. So we should now be able to scale our apps, right? I mean, what should we scale? I think we should just, we should go to the folder where the Docker Compose file is located. So, you know, this thing here with the services. And then we can just say docker compose scale our weather backend to, let's say, 3. Right. And now they should be running. And I think they need a few seconds, and then they should be up. Right. And it's also built a bit like this Spring Cloud thingy that you use Eureka in different time zones and different global cloud centers. So if we have a look on the, I said we have this second Eureka instance. So we have this thing here that the weather backend and the weather service, I think, are registering to only the weather backend is registering to the second Eureka service registry, and the Zool and weather service are registering to the first, and then they just syncing their state so that Zool is finally able to access all the apps, and also the weather service should be able to do this. So at the end, we should have a setup like that. Now we started with the Packer build, then we have the Ansible providing all the Docker basics, and then we just pumped the whole Spring Cloud stuff there, and then hopefully it should work. So let's have a look at the Vagrant Box again and refresh this. Yeah. Here are the 3 weather backends. So we now scaled our apps. So if the responses are on the requests are rising, we should be able to handle that. Yeah, pretty cool, I hope. Yeah. So I think we should have everything. It's a cloud native day, so it's not real cloud scaling. So I promised for Sandra and some other guys, I mean, it was Benjamin, come on, do some more thing, okay? I brought some more thing, because what have we done now? We did this. We have one box, one Windows box, you know, there's running our apps. But what is actually happening in the real world? It's more like this. You know, you have all these Linux, Windows mixed servers and stuff like that, and then you just need something to manage it, because it's just the hell of a, don't know, just the hell. And okay, as we already done, let's just go to Google. Seems to know everything, so mixed OS Docker. First, that looks good. Let's just do, okay. I think we need Docker Swarm. And we can use Vagrant and Ansible, that's cool. So let's try that. I mean, we're just a bit out of time, I know. So I just have some, I think, 4 easy steps what we can do. We can use just Vagrant's multi-machine setup. You know, Vagrant is not only capable of handling one machine, it's also capable of handling so much machines your gigabytes of RAM can handle. So let's just use that. And we are using something that is introduced by all this Swarm and Kubernetes stuff. So you have this manager or a master nodes, and then you have this worker nodes. So we have one manager node from Windows, one manager node with Linux, one worker node with Windows, and one with Linux. So I think with that we have most of the scenarios that could come outside. I mean, you can have more, but not on this laptop. And then we just fiddle around that all these machines are finding themselves in the network, because as you're just starting with Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, you get to know this old study script from the network seminar, you know, and then you just pull it out because you have to do all this network plumbing and really hardcore network plumbing. So just pull it out and read it again. And then we just use Ansible to provide Docker on every node. No problem. We've done that for Windows, so it should be easy for Linux. And then we just initialize our swarm. And yeah, if we just start playing around with this stuff, we get to know that we should have something like a management GUI because it's really running out of our scope, this thing, you know? You remember the picture with the Spring Cloud thing? I mean, this was complex, but now it's just a mess. So we're using Portainer for that because it's really nice management GUI for Docker Swarm or Docker in general. And we need a Docker Swarm registry for the later application deployment. Okay. So, but as I said, the guys from the conference don't trust the guy that is talking to you. Just always say, okay, where's the demo? If there's no demo, then it wasn't there. So I have to just kill the one machine because I don't have too much RAM. Yeah. Okay. No updates today. Okay, just don't have that much time. So let's just say Vagrant up, and we just should have some more machines, hopefully. Ah, there's a new one. Damn. Okay, so this one is master Linux. Okay. Then they should run. I'm just doing Vagrant up. I mean, just doing the idiot commands, you know. So then this thing should be up. Okay, then let's boot the second one. Should be, don't know, should be Zoom. It's the worker Linux box. Okay, right, should be there. And let's start another Windows one. Right, so it's starting it up there. Yeah, okay, it's moving. I think it's the master Windows node, master Windows. Right. And then there should be another one for worker. As they're starting, I can give you a hint about this stuff. If you want to really want to start now with Docker Swarm and Windows, or other way around, don't start with Kubernetes now. Please wait a few months and then start. Just start with Docker Swarm now. And if you start with Docker Swarm, just ignore what idiots write on the internet, like me. Don't use Windows Server 2016, because the problem is later in the application deployment, you don't have some nice features from Docker Swarm, like the ingress networking, where you can access all your apps from every node. If you don't have this, nothing runs. So sadly, you need the new Windows Server 1709, which is not public accessible right now. You need a friendly admin for that ISO. You can use the same license like the Windows Server 2016, but you don't really get the ISO. You can register at the Microsoft Insider program and get box legally. But in your company, you need some contracts there, I think software assurance, and then you can use it. Right, there's the fourth machine. So what was the fourth one? I think the worker Windows, right? Okay, so we now have this 4 machines here, the master Linux, the worker Linux, the master Windows, and the worker windows, right? So we have them all there, and we should now be finally able to just initialize the swarm. So I hope they are there already. Let's see if this works. Who has played around or who is using Docker Swarm in production? It's the better question. Okay, who has played around with Docker Swarm? Right, you know this thing where you have to just exchange all the tokens. You have to initialize a swarm on a manager node and then get the join tokens from it, and then do the join tokens to the other nodes, and then just use them there to join the swarm. And that has to be done with Ansible. What is not that easy, but just Google it. Should be no problem. Nice. Okay. You obtain the tokens. These are the tokens. There are these two styles: the worker token, worker join token, and the manager join token, and they have to be provided to every node, and then the node is joining the swarm. Then we can label our nodes that, okay, this one is Windows, this one is Linux. Then we just run our local registry or our Docker Swarm registry, and then that looks good. We should have a running swarm here. So let's have a look onto the master node, and you recognize there's no GUI anymore at the new Windows server. So Docker node ls should bring us the swarm, right? Here's the leader is here, and another one is reachable, so that sounds good. And let's have a look at this. Okay, Portainer is also running, so let's have a look at Portainer. 3 minutes, that's not much, but okay. Right, and there we have our swarm. Right, so we have this master Linux, worker Windows, master Windows, worker Linux. Just the two services. The Portainer is running as Docker Swarm service, and the Swarm registry is also running as Docker Swarm service. And now we can hopefully do the final step, which should be what? Not released yet on the blog, so hope to do that. The final step would be this here, right? You knew that before. We initialized all, and we now need an edge service that is capable of handling this Docker Swarm thing. I really got to love Traffic as a proxy for that. I don't really like Zool for that. I hope that Spring Cloud Gateway is the right thing, maybe. But Traffic is really cool. I can really recommend it. And then just deploy all the Spring Cloud thingy also, you know? I mean, we have them there, the apps, so let's do it. And then we should be able, Benjamin is not stopping me, so I just, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Let's just deploy them. And the difference now for compared to the Docker Compose thing is that we have to push every Docker image to the Docker Swarm registry, and then run them from a manager node, because otherwise all the nodes wouldn't know about the images. They would say, I don't have the Docker image for the weather backend, so we have to use our Docker Swarm registry for that. So let's have a look at Yeah, now it's building all the apps. Spring Boot admin, there's Spring Boot admin. I added that. Where's Johannes? There. So hope it will work. So, and remember, open all the ports. I mean, it sounds stupid, but open all the ports. You know, your Spring Boot app has a port that is bound to the node. It has to be open to be accessible. It's an easy point, but I mean, I missed it. Okay, so template the Docker stack file. It's there's no network. The you know the Docker compose file. You can reuse it with Docker Swarm. It's just a new point there. It's just this deployment section, and just deploy it, right? Okay, should be there. Let's have a look at the services. Yeah, there's this thing. I think the Docker stack is named Clear Sky, so we should now have more apps here, right? They should get more and more. And now the swarm makes what a swarm does. He just deploys everything, and you just you can do something about it, but mostly he just does what he wants. So you see, all the apps should be there. Ah, nice. He just it's a nice use case. So he just pushed it to all the servers. And then we should have a traffic that is able to provide all our apps, right? Nice. So this is traffic. All our apps are accessible. And we just configured 2 replicas for the weather backend. You know, we scaled it before with Docker Swarm. It's a replica. So they are all registered. That looks good. So let's have a look at the weather backend. It's configured, so we just should see it here. Pretty cool. And it's really cool, you know. It's you know, the app is running here. It has a port inside the Docker network, which is bound to the node, which is bound to the Docker Swarm network, which is then exposed and then used by Vagrant as a forwarded port to the MacBook, right? So pretty cool. We should have Eureka there as well. Right. There are some services, and I hope there should be a Spring Boot admin. So, no. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. That was the last big thing. I think blog post about the one more thing is coming. And yeah, thank you that you made it this hour. And I hope you have some power left for coffee break.